I recorded this in 3 minutes last time, but we're going to do 60 seconds because I don't think anyone watched it all the way through, and every woman who dates men needs to hear this fucking story, okay? So a friend of a friend was going on Hinge dates, meets this guy, great rapport, great back and forth, great first date. He knocks it out of the park. He's like, second date, I'm going to cook dinner for you. She's like, don't gotta ask me twice. She goes over there, he cooks her dinner. He's like, I'm vegan also, so it might taste a little different than what you're used to, but I hope you like it. And she does. She likes it. It's good. He doesn't try to hook up with her, all green flags. The next day, she wakes up violently ill, projectile vomiting all day. Goes to the ER, they run a bunch of tests, and the doctor comes in the room and he looks at her really weird and he's like, ma'am, have you consumed human meat in the last 24 hours? She realizes what has happened, calls the cops. The cops show up to his apartment. Turns out it's an Airbnb that he rented out under a fake name. It's cleared out. All of his social media profiles are cleaned. Ladies, don't let him cook for you.
21-year-old Grace Mullane went on a Tinder date, probably not expecting it would be the last thing she would ever do. Originally from England, Grace was on a trip in New Zealand when she decided to go on a date with Jesse Kempson. The two of them had gone out on a date and returned to a hotel room later that night, around 10 p.m. Once they returned to the hotel, Grace was never seen again. After strangling Grace, Jesse put her inside of that suitcase pictured in these photos and took her out of the hotel in pieces. He had to use the dolly cart because it was too heavy. This is security footage of Jesse purchasing that suitcase just days before the date. Jesse becomes the number one suspect as he was the last person to see her. So when police search his phone and see areas he was looking in the wilderness, they find Grace.
Did anyone else see that story of the girl who went on that Tinder date? The guy made her dinner. She went to the hospital the next day because she felt super sick and found out from the doctor that she had consumed human meat. I would never be the same. I don't know that I'd want to live after that. Anyways, they went to the guy's apartment and found bodies there. He had rented an Airbnb to cook for her in, but they found his real address, obviously, and found out that he was a killer and he was a cannibal, and she was probably his next victim. Man, I would not want to date out there on these streets.
Okay, but actually to reinforce your delusions, I was once ghosted by a man that I really liked, only for him to tell me 9 months later that he was actually really in love with me. It freaked him out. He didn't know what to do, and therefore he just decided to never speak to me again. I hope that helps.
Welcome to This Is Why I'm Still Single. Dating stories that will have you cringing so hard that you'll understand why I'm still single. So years ago, I matched with this guy online, and we actually had a couple first dates that went really well. So 2 different dates, we were really vibing, feeling each other, things were good. Third date, he told me to meet him at his place of work. He was a manager at a restaurant. I knew that he may get off a little bit later than what he said, so I got there at the original time and just kind of like hung out waiting at the bar area. As I'm sitting there waiting, I'm talking to one of the bartenders, the waitresses. People are just coming up and talking to me and asking if I needed any help, and I said, no, I'm waiting for so-and-so. And one of the girls kind of looked at me sideways like she was angry or jealous or something. She kept asking me questions. She said, who are you and how do you know him? I said, oh, we're just brand new dating. This is just our 3rd date. I really like him though. She looked appalled and walked away. I was like, okay, that's weird. There must be a story there, but whatever. It ended up taking a little bit longer, so I'm just sitting there waiting, and finally he comes up and he says, all right, let's go, I'm good. As we walk out, this black SUV comes screeching around the corner, going way too fast. He looks up and sees who it is, and he looks horrified. This woman gets out of the car angrily, stomps over to get her kid out of the back seat. Didn't even look like the child is in a car seat. Definitely should have been. Puts the kid on her hip, comes over and starts screaming at the guy I'm going on a date with. She's yelling and crying and cussing and calling me names, and I am all kinds of confused because I have no idea who this woman is. She gives him the baby, goes back to the car, gets something out of her car, comes back, throws it in my face, and says, "Look at this." I look at what it is, and it's a wedding invitation. Their wedding invitation that is 8 days away from the day that we're on, the current day right then. So that was his fiance, who already had a child by him and was about to marry this man. I start apologizing profusely, even though I had no idea that he was with somebody. I just didn't want to see her hurt. I looked at him, she looked at him. We're both waiting for answers. Get this. His response is, "I thought that I loved you, but I just wanted to make sure, so I thought I would go out with another woman just to like make sure I really loved you." That's what he told the other girl. And then he looked at me and he was like, "I mean, I really was feeling you. I liked you." What? Like, I was so taken back and I felt so bad for this girl. I obviously just went my separate ways, said I was so sorry, never spoke to him again, blocked his number, and moved on. But I did wonder about them that next Saturday, 8 days later, to see if maybe they would actually get married, but I just let it go. About a year and a half later, I ran into the guy at a Wendy's, and he came up to me and he said, "Becca, is that you?" I realized who he was, and he said that they got divorced a year after that wedding. So they did get married, got divorced a year later, and then he asked me out again. I obviously said absolutely not, but it was the audacity to ask me out a second time after what happened the first time that really got me. I came home that night to a Facebook invitation friend request from him as well. No thank you. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I'm still single.
Why I'm done with dating apps.
It's the end of the day. This is why I look like this. But quick story time for you lot. I jumped on Hinge. Okay. I know there's nothing there for me. It's the devil's playground. It's full of trash. And I jumped in with the trash head first. And I started talking to this guy from Hinge. The conversation, good. We were talking for hours. He added me on Instagram. He added me on Snapchat. I kind of wasn't keen on all of that, but okay, sure. We spoke for a bit. And then this Saturday, I happened to be going to my friend's house who lives right next to him. So we decided that we'd see each other. Not a date, just a quick like. I drove over there and he came out to meet me. We walked around his area just a bit. And as we're walking, he says to me that he Googled me. Okay, he Googled me. Now, I'm a little bit alarmed because why are you Googling me? Strange, okay? But then he goes on to say that he also has a friend. Okay, wait, before I tell you what he said, I understand that we do research on each other, okay? If you're dating someone that you meet online, I get it. Because even sometimes you might even not know somebody, but you've clicked on their profile and you've ended up on their neighbors, friends, dogs, cousins, sisters, uncles, best friends page. And then you've seen that they had a baby. But then when you see your best friend, you don't then turn around and say, "Oh, I saw that Steve's uncle had a baby." Like, no, you don't do that because it's weird. You're supposed to pretend that you don't know that Martha was born. Like, you don't start talking about it. It's weird. But anyway, he says to me that he has a friend that works in HMRC and he got the friend to search me up. I asked, what is there to find? And he said that basically the friend searched like to see my past employers and things like that. So I'm done with Hinge.
So I have been single for about like 5 years now, for a multitude of reasons, but one of the biggest is that I just really have a hard time with dating apps. I just find it very superficial. It's hard for me to get attached to someone when I really just don't know their personality. So every once in a while I get like this urge to go and use something like Hinge or Tinder. And so I matched with this guy, and he seemed really nice. He was cute. We had similar interests, and for the sake of his identity, I am not going to give any more information than that, because as horrible as this was, I still don't want to ruin his life. One of my Hinge prompts is we're the same type of weird if, and I responded about like licking both sides of the hint of lime Tostitos to try to figure out which is the limier side, because that's the side that I'm gonna bite into. So he responded to that. And we just ended up talking about food, and it ended up getting into the topic of buffalo sauce. And one thing led to another, and ultimately he ended up asking me if I was addicted to buffalo sauce, and I was going to play it off and be normal, and not be a weirdo, but I'm like, you know what, if we were to start dating and actually end up together at one point, he's gonna see this anyway, so I might as well just let him have it. Told him that when I get Chick-fil-A, I like the spicy chicken sandwich, and when I get that, I get the zesty buffalo sauce, and if I don't finish the sauce, I will drink it like I am taking a shot, whatever's left in there. And you might think that's weird now, but just wait, because it's gonna, what he's gonna say next is more weird. So he's like, well, that's weird, but your honesty is super attractive. So we were kind of like flirting a little bit, and I was like, I bet you can't top that. He topped it. He topped it. I'll give you a few seconds to think about what you would like it to be, because whatever you're thinking, it's not it. He responds back, and I got this text, it must have come through at like 6 or 7 in the morning, so when I first saw it, I thought it was fake, because I was convinced that I saw it and I was like half asleep and I dreamed it. But no, I went back and I confirmed what I saw. He really said this to me. He topped me by saying that he still picks his nose and eats it. He's in his early 30s. That shouldn't be okay no matter what. But early 30s. I had no response to that. There was nothing I could say. You know, in Interstellar, when Cooper asks Tars what his honesty setting is, Tars responds back that it's at 90%, because it's not always good to be 100% honest. When in doubt, let's be like Tars, because honesty is not always the best policy, and some stuff should just go with you to the grave. In case anyone's wondering, yeah, I'm going to be taking another 5-year hiatus from dating. So, awesome.
Okay, pardon me looking so disheveled and sweaty, but I just rage walked home after lasting 10 minutes on a date. And I'm reeling, and I know that I need to like be taking care of myself right now, but this feels like taking care of myself, and this is the first time I've ever walked out on a date after being made to feel incredibly uncomfortable, and I think it's really important that I share this. So I've been trying to like not chit chat pen pal with people before meeting them, because I find I like create this false idea of who they are in my head, and then it's like really devastating when it doesn't work out. So meeting quickly is the way to go. However, it causes problems when you cannot adequately vet someone before meeting them. So this guy comes to pick me up at my house. I know, bad idea, but whatever, I did it. I've done worse, so it was fine. He came to pick me up at my house, and he was very nice. We kind of like flirted a little bit along our walk to get gelato. And then we sit down with our gelato. And actually before this, it was like quite pleasant. You know, we were chatting. He was being flirty for sure. I was flirting back. It was nice. We got distracted like while ordering gelato, being a little flirtatious, and like that was super nice. So I was like getting a good vibe. Then we sit down. We sit down at a park nearby and start the usual like, where are you from? How many siblings do you have? Except this time he jumped right into hobbies, which whatever, I like hobbies. So I was like, oh, like I noticed you paint.
I noticed you paint on your profile. I noticed that. And he was like, yes, I want to paint you naked. Pardon? We just met. So I tried to like laugh it off because we were joking about Titanic, and I was like, okay, maybe this is just like nerves coming out. So I tried to like laugh it off, and I was like, I usually wait, a few dates before getting painted naked. Like, to me, that was like a subtle but clear indication that I was not comfortable with where this conversation was going, especially since we just met 10 minutes ago. Nope, didn't catch on to that. He continues, he asks, like, I saw you're artistic, maybe you want to draw me naked. And I was like, actually, I don't draw. And like I said, we just met. So I'm not going to do that after meeting for 15 minutes. And like, maybe let's move it along. Then he asks me, what do you do before bed? I know exactly where this is fucking going. Dude, do you think I was born yesterday? I know where this is going. So I said, I read. I read before bed. No phone time because it keeps me up. I read, and then I go to bed. Shoo, honk shoo. I honk shoo. That's it. Nothing else. You know what he says to me? He says, I masturbate. He says it just like that. I masturbate. And I was like, huh. I was like, oh, we just met. This is where things start getting, I start losing my poker face, and I'm like picking at my gelato, and I'm like, we just met, and you're telling me you jack off every night before bed? And he's like, well, what, don't you? And I was like, that's actually none of your fucking business, because we just met. I also don't need to know that you twiddle your pinky every night before bed. I don't need to know that when we just met. And he's like, oh, well, I'm just telling you about myself, and like, I'm just being open, and like, oh, like I'm just telling you all of these things that I do. Like, as if he said, I play basketball, I play tennis, I paint, and I jack off, like in that order. And I was like, you know what? That's fine that that's what you do, but it would be cool if you like were picking up what I was saying, that it was making me uncomfortable. Then he asked, are you Catholic? Do you pray? To imply that like it must be because I'm religious and that's why I'm not feeling what he's talking about. And I said, nope, I don't pray. I'm not religious. I'm not Catholic. I just don't want to hear about your dick in the first 15 minutes that we've spoken. And then he's like, well, how long does it take to get to know someone? Like 2 days? Essentially implying like, how long is it going to be for us to sleep together? So here's what I did. I said, you know what? I don't think this is working. I'm going to go. And he was like, okay, go home. I'm French, go home. So I get up with my gelato. I strut my fucking stuff. Actually, you know what? Before this, I said, you know what? On a first date, I don't want to be asked to be drawn naked, and I don't want you to tell me how you masturbate every night. And I said that very loudly, super loud, and he was looking around. So I'm like, you fucking know what you're saying is inappropriate. I'm not a fucking prude, okay? So yeah, I pick up my gelato, I walk to the garbage can, I whip it into the garbage, and I power walk my way to 7-Eleven to get some cigarettes because I was gonna quit, but I cannot quit today. I can't quit today. I'm gonna quit. Well, I'm gonna quit in 2 packs from now because the guy at the 7-Eleven was like, it's cheaper to buy 2. And I was like, well, I was gonna quit, but I guess I'll wait a little. Anyway, that's how my dating life is. How's yours? In all seriousness though, I wish that I'd walked out on so many more dates that went this way. I really, really do. And as much as I like wanted it to go well, wanted it to be nice because I think I look freaking cute. Sorry about the sweat because I power walked home. It is so much more important to protect your dignity. Not even dignity. It's important to protect how you want to be treated by people. And maybe that would have been fine for someone else. And, you know, I've had dates where it's like, we're just hooking up and like, it's cool to be sexual right away. This was not one of those. This was a proper date. Whatever. This was a date that like, I'm looking for my person and it says that on my bio. What I'm trying to say is, know your worth, know what you will put up with, and leave when they're not respecting you. because I told him in a variety of ways that I was uncomfortable with what he was saying and that he needed to stop. And instead of stopping, he doubled down and argued with me. So I fucking left. Anyway, how's that for Sunday scaries?
For someone to so fiercely present a certain way, but then be living a completely different life is terrifying.
So I've been on the apps a ton. I was out at a bar a couple months ago, meet someone in the wild. This man was adamant. He was like, I want to take you out. He was like, I'm going to be gone the next couple weeks. Plans a date 2 weeks in advance, makes reservations, everything. So I'm thinking, okay, let's see what happens. Basically, end up going out with this guy for several months. He's consistent. He's reassuring me. I want to go to a concert. We go to the concert. He was basically everything I've been looking for. So I met all of his friends. He met all of my friends. He did keep saying to my friends, he's like, I don't want to mess this up. Like, he was like, I really, really like this girl. So I'm thinking the whole time, like, this is great. Our friends get along, everything. Basically kept reassuring me, went on tons of dates. We're basically together most nights of the week. And then spent a whole Saturday together where he actually, pretty early on, asked to be official. Where I was a little bit taken back. I'm like, you're bringing this up. The man is bringing this up. What's going on? He's like, I want you to be my girlfriend. I was like, all right. I was like, we don't have to do that, but like, I'm not seeing anyone else. And he goes, and I'm not seeing anyone else either. So fast forward, a couple weeks later, things are still going great.
And this man was like thoroughly vetted. He met all the friends. She met his friends. Everyone had glowing reviews about him. He was so
no
sincere.
red flags. Everyone was like, he's a golden retriever. And I was like, I found my golden retriever. So we are getting ready to go to dinner. And he gets a phone call from a name I can't see with a heart. And he proceeds to tell me it's his brother after he throws the phone across the room. So I'm like, it's not really adding up that your brother, why are you throwing your phone whenever your brother's calling? And why is there a heart next to his name? Reasoning skills. I'm like, who was that? It's obviously a woman. And he was like, I met her at a tailgate, but we didn't have sex. Can I say that? And basically, I was like, what? And he was like, I was like, did you make out with her? And he was like, I think I did. And I was like,
and this was the weekend before? He said the tailgate was the weekend before?
Yeah.
So this man's in a relationship at this point, and he just meets a random girl.
And he's fine with just being like, oh, but we just made out. And I said, you made it official with me. So I'm confused. I'm kind of sitting there thinking, why is this girl that you met last weekend calling you on a Tuesday? And he proceeds to sweat, so much sweat. I was like, something's not right. So finally I'm like, do you want to tell me who that really was? And he finally tells me it is. And I find out that he has been dating someone else for months, but she lives in another city. He's like, we talk every other day and I've gone to visit her. He goes, I wanted to end it, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings. But now I realize I'm hurting yours. Ew. So I find out who this girl is, and he thinks we're still going to go to dinner, to which I said, you can get out. So he proceeds to leave, and I get a text, 11:30 that night. If I can do anything to win you back, I will do anything, blah, blah, blah. Stupid apology.
He was like, I'll end things with her. Didn't he say I'm going to end things with her?
I cut all ties with her, which at this point, I don't believe a word that comes out of your mouth. Sat on it for a weekend, and I responded, and homeboy went radio silent. Wild.
Like, it is so crazy to me because this whole time, this man was so adamant about dating her and about being serious and his intentions, and we'd all kind of joke with him, like, don't fuck it up with Kelly, and he'd always be like, oh my God, I would never do anything to hurt her. I'm so, like, he just seemed so genuine and pursued you so hard. And then for all of this to come out, it was just like, obviously devastating for you.
Yeah.
And there's just like a lot of women out there, and I've talked about it before with dating, where, you can, as soon as you let yourself trust someone, you still just don't know if that's the person they are. She vetted him in every way possible. This was in person. This wasn't even on the apps. I just think that dating right now is so tough to navigate, because in order to let your guard down, that requires a certain amount of trust. And with all of the negative experiences women in particular are having, it's just harder and harder to trust anybody.
Yeah.
I just walked out on my date.
Horror Story Part
you guys
1.
the tea before leaving. Okay, this guy asked me to send him my location before leaving. Live location I did. I thought he was gonna track it, so like when I arrive, he's gonna be by the door waiting for me, you know, to receive me and all of that, since he didn't have to pick me up or send a taxi. I arrived and I had to text him like, where are you? How do I find you? Then he sent me a picture 5 minutes later of where he's seated so I could find him. I see this guy wearing shorts, just a normal collared shirt and slippers. One thing I do not tolerate on first dates is convenience. Like the zero effort. And the mistake I made is I didn't ask this guy, how long have you been in Dubai for? I know it's a question I don't like people asking me, but at this point I had to ask. And he's like, oh, I've been here for over 15 years. And in my head, I'm like, this is not gonna work. It is not gonna work. Straight into the conversation, he's telling me about his 3 kids. He's showing me pictures. Now, time to eat. He's like, oh, we're not gonna eat today. We're just doing drinks because we're getting to know each other, you know? So what beer do you want? And I'm like, no, I don't drink beer. I'm even actually on an alcohol break, so I'll go for like a mojito. And he goes, okay. So he orders his beer and I order my mocktail, and we're having conversations. He was trying to touch me and I'm like, I don't allow this on the first date, so please keep your hands to yourself. Thank you very much. The fact that I had to even tell him, it was already off. The conversation was so dead. We were done with the first drinks. We're gonna order the second drink. The waitress comes, she recommends something for me. I go for like a Red Bull and some mixture, and he goes for his second glass of beer. And the waitress was like, would you guys like to have like a starter or bites with whatever drink you're having? And he takes the menu from her, he closed it, and he tossed it to the other part of the table. He's like, no, we're just doing drinks, please take it away from here. That was so rude. And the fact that he did not even ask me. Like, usually you should turn around and ask your guest, do you want something? He didn't ask me. He just said, no, we're not drinking, we're not doing anything. He closes the menu and tosses it over. At that point in my head, I'm like, no, this date is, I'm never seeing this guy again. The next thing he does, his friend calls him. He picks up the phone and he was giving the guy the direction to come with us. And I was like, are you expecting someone? And he's like, oh yeah, you know, his friend.
Dating in Dubai Horror Story Part 2.
The next thing he does, his friend calls him. He picks up the phone and he was giving the guy the direction to come with us. And I was like, are you expecting someone? And he's like, oh yeah, you know, his friend is probably just bought a home and he'd like to join us. And I'm like, you didn't tell me, you didn't ask me, you just assume that's okay? I told him I wanted to go pee, but that was actually where I wanted to disappear from. But like the toilet was straight right in front of us. There's no way I'll just get up and walk away. I was just looking for the perfect excuse. I go use the washroom. 5 minutes, his friend was already there. I was like, where was this guy when he even called? Okay, I come back, shake the friend. Hi, nice to meet you. The friend is like, oh, it's amazing to meet you. I've heard so much about you. And straight up, man, I told him, no, you've not. I'm just meeting him for the first time, and he surely haven't said anything about me to you. And the guy, the date, was like, oh bro, you fucked up. I didn't tell you anything about her. I'm just meeting her today for the first time. I was disgusted. I just grabbed my bag and I'm like, yo, I gotta go train now. You know, I skipped the gym to come spend time with you, but I gotta go now. And they wanted to start creating conversations. I was like, I'm gonna go. I came out from the bathroom. I haven't even sat down. And I was like, you know what? I think I'll just go from here. And they were like, oh, you know, the night is still young. We're just getting started. And I'm like, no, I gotta go. I gotta go to the gym actually. And he stretches his hand to shake me. I was like, you know what? There's no need actually. Then I was walking away. He's like, oh, come here. Give me a hug. He hugs me with one hand and then bends over to kiss me. I'm like, what is wrong with you? At this point, I couldn't hide my disgust. I was like, what is wrong with you? Ah, gosh, Dubai. It's crazy. Where do they make this, man? People,
I cannot make this up. I cannot make this up. Imagine, first date with a man. You hit it off. Great energy. Date runs long. And you have a graduation party to get to. So I'm like, you know what? Okay, you want to come with me to my homegirl's graduation party? He's like, okay, yeah, sure. But I don't want to show up empty-handed, so we stop at the Target. Another green flag, because we've been hitting it off. Okay, great. We stop at Target. He gets her a card. We go to the graduation party. I introduce him to my friend. Cool. We go to my car. We're getting into my car. He's saying like, oh yeah, can you drop me off at the mall? Da-da-da-da, like whatever. Fine, because he allegedly Ubered an hour to get to me. Because he lives far out, not in the city. This man gets in my car. All of a sudden, a woman comes up out of the blue. I don't know where this woman was. She comes up and she yanks open my passenger side door. She's like, what the F are you doing? Get up. Come with me right now. Come with me right now. Get up. Get up. You're coming with me. At first, I thought she was joking. And at first, I thought it was like she saw him from afar, thought he was fine. Came into the car, was like, you're coming with me. You're coming with me. Because he was just like, chill, chill, chill. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cute. Like, he's fine. Okay, period, sis. But, like, not too much. But then she gets rowdy. She's like, get out the car. Get out the car. And yanks this full-grown size man and yanks him out the car. So I'm like, oh, y'all know each other. Takes him out the car. Bella, my car, is here. Her car is here. I'm T-boned in. I cannot move. There's a car in front of me. So all I can do is sit and look in my rear view at her beating. Just beating his ass. Just beating his ass. And I'm like, I turn my music down so I can hear what's being said. I can't hear nothing, but just going. And I'm like, what the heck? I didn't have the word. Like, I know the words that happened so fast, and I cannot move. So I'm sitting here, waiting for her to finish his beating. Finally, they start to back up. They pull up beside me. I'm looking like this. And he goes. And they drive off. And I just didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Because clearly that's your girl. We talked about cheating. We talked about red flags. We talked about green flags. He had passed a lot of, like, he had a good head on his shoulders, I thought. We talked about cheating in 30 minutes. We talked about emotional versus physical cheating. And she picked him up and yanked him out of the passenger side. And they drove off, and then he texted me, what are you doing? What am I doing? I'm coping. I'm done with men. Especially light skins. I can't.
I have the absolute worst luck in dating. Like, I'm talking my ex cheating on me with 20 plus women and me finding out via Facebook bad. Or men almost physically fighting me outside the club because they were mad at me. So I thought I would take today to talk about one of my most recent horror dating stories. Buckle up. So there was this guy. So this guy seemed to be great on paper. He had a great job. I met him through mutual friends. Off rip, there were no red flags. But little did I know that he would try to fight me in a club just weeks later. I'm honestly just like dying thinking about this story. So I might be in the wrong for this, but I am a person that will not give up my time on the weekends for a man unless I have deemed them qualified. I am a busy gal and my weekends are sacred. And until a guy can prove to me that he is serious about me, then I will give him that time on the weekends. I was talking to this guy for like a month and I had finally deemed him qualified to come along with me on my little feral weekend adventures. And for this adventure in particular, we were going to park. Park is like an instance type of nightclub in San Diego. This night in particular, one of my DJ friends was playing and he had a party bus. A lot of our friends were going, so I thought it was a perfect time to introduce this man to the friends. I sorted everything out for him and his friends to come along with us, have a party bus, have a table to sit at, and just like meet everyone. I thought I was personally being very accommodating, making sure that my guy and his friend were gonna have a good time. So obviously we get there, everything's great. I'm saying hi to my friends, he's meeting all of my friends, everything's going smooth until it doesn't. And this is a point where it takes a very scary turn. So I leave him and his friend at the table and I say, okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom, I come back, I see my DJ friend's about to go up, and I am chatting with him and his friends behind the DJ booth, I know, but for like 15 minutes max. I go back to the table, my situationship and his friend are gone. So what do? I call him. And this part's crazy because he answers and he's just yelling at me, cursing at me, being like, you left me, what's wrong with you, blah, 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 you abandoned me, you weren't gonna come back. And I was like, whoa. I don't know where this guy got the idea that I was not gonna come back, because clearly I was. So at that point, something just comes over me. I run out the club and looking for him to make sure he's okay. And all of a sudden I see him. What happens next, I have never had any sort of man do to me ever. I find him outside, he sees me and he comes running at my face. The man looks like he is about to charge and beat me up. Homeboy literally got this close to my face and is just cursing in my face. And to be honest, I froze because I was just terrified. But your girl kept her cool and I just like talked him down and made him see the reality of things. He went from playing victim to apologizing real quick. Obviously, it just like wasn't the same anymore. Like something in my brain like switched that night and I was just like repulsed by him after that. Like I genuinely felt so on edge around this guy. Like just giving him a hug like just made me feel nervous. Of course, I literally dumped him that night. But then he reached out to me about 2 weeks later and your girl was not very smart and she took him back. If you guys want the part 2, I will give you the part 2 because he did some crazier stuff the second time around. Like I really should have learned my lesson the first time. So ladies, do not be with an insecure man. Do not let a man charge at you. And if he does, literally kick him to the curb. Okay, thanks for listening to my story time. Love you guys. You guys asked for it. Here is part 2 to my latest and craziest situationship story time. I am honestly so dumb for taking this man back after thinking he was literally going to punch me outside of the club. So I will preface this by saying that I am not the best texter, but if you are my best friend or the guy that I'm into, I will be on top of texting. And this guy would get pissed when I wouldn't have meaningful text conversations with him 24/7. So what does he do because I suck at texting? He decides to ignore me all day. And on top of that, he decides to go to Hong Kong Lounge in Tijuana, Mexico. Now, I cannot say what happens at Hong Kong Lounge, but use Google to figure it out. It's really bad. Let's just say he went to a place where you can illegally solicit people, aka women, to do things to you. And his little dumb self thought it was a great idea to call me while he was there at Hong Kong. So he calls me at 4 a.m, waits for me to answer, hangs up, and obviously, since he hung up on me, what am I going to do? I'm going to call him back. And I knew he was in Mexico way before he told me he was, because when I called him from the US, the ring style calling from the US to Mexico is different. I immediately knew. So once I knew he was in Mexico, I was petty and I was like, oh, I heard the Chinese food in Mexico is great, have fun. And then the next day, this man had the audacity to act like nothing had happened. I pretty much was done with him after that point, and he could not apologize. He could not see any wrong in what he was doing. He tried to basically play victim the whole time, being like, well, you ignore me, and I thought this was the only way that I could show you what it's like to be ignored, and blah, blah, blah. I was way too nice to this man. I heard him out for way too long. He sent me video apologies, long paragraphs. Like, I was just over it. Like, thank you, next. Safe to say, I cut him off, and I have him now blocked on Instagram because he's crazy. All right, thanks for listening, guys. I know that was a lot. Love you.
This is the story of how I got catfished. So, I'm on Tinder. I'm 18. Says it all. So I've been talking to this guy for a while. In his bio, he has things like, I'm a mechanic. I can't actually remember if that's what he did. But for the sake of this video, he's a mechanic. So I'm a mechanic. I'm 6'4". I love animals. I have a pet dog. Things like that. We're talking for a couple of weeks. He doesn't live far from me, so we decide to go to our local Nando's. Keep it calm, keep it casual. He's getting the train in, I'm getting the bus in. The train stop is like this end of the high street, and my bus is coming in at the bottom of the high street. So we decide to walk up and meet halfway. I'm walking up the high street. He texted me like, oh, I think I can see you. So I look up, I can see him in the distance, right? He told me what outfit he was wearing. I can see him in the distance. He looked really, really small, tiny. But I'm thinking, well, it's because he's far away. Like, the closer he'll get, the bigger he'll get. He was my height. I'm 5'3". He said he was 6'4" in his bio. How can you lie about your height when there's over a foot difference? I know guys do it where they're like 5'11" and they say they're 6 foot, or they're 5'9" and they say they're 5'10", that's fine. You can't say you're 6'4" and be 5'3". Height isn't even like this massive deal to me. Ideally, yes, I want a guy over 6 foot because it makes me feel cute and protected. But at the end of the day, if I really like someone, your height is not going to put me off. If I like you, I like you. But you can't lie about your height like that. If this ever happened to me now, I'd confront it straight away. Straight away, I would be like, why have you lied about your height? Like, you know I'm gonna know. You know I'm gonna see it. But 18-year-old Slaney, 18-year-old Slaney, pretended like nothing had happened. I have dyscalculia and he knew that, so maybe he thought he could trick me. Because people with dyscalculia commonly cannot tell distances and heights. But I can tell the difference between 5'3" and 6'4". I can tell there's a difference. Anyway, turned out to be the worst date of my life. And not because of his height. Comment for part 2. Oh. There are about 5 or 6 things that happened that... What the hell? 5 or 6 things that happened that I should have just walked out. But I had no confidence. Me now, if a date is bad, I'm gone straight away. I'll just get up and walk out. I won't even explain why. But 18-year-old me... She tolerated a lot. Too much. I tolerated too much. Comment if you want to know why this was the worst date of my life. What this guy did. I hate him. I still hate him to this day. Okay, the worst date I've ever been on. I can't even remember if I gave this guy a fake name, so we're going to call him Peter. Flipping Peter. So I've ignored the fact that he lied about his height. My mistake number 1. We go into Nando's. We're shown our seats by a lovely little waitress. As soon as we sit down and this waitress is out of earshot, he says, she was hot. She was hot. Don't do that. Don't. When you're on a date, you don't do that. You just don't. My eyes look massive with this eyeliner. So he's just told me someone else is hot and I'm like, right, okay. But in my head, I'm like gaslighting myself thinking, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm just insecure. Maybe that's why I don't want to hear it. Maybe it's me. Wasn't me. We start talking about what we want to order. I'm a basic bitch, always gets the same thing. Double chicken wrap with halloumi. Lemon and herb. I don't like spice. I can't handle it. I'm white. We then go up to the counter and order our food. He orders way more than me, but that's fine. He's a growing lad. We then sit back down. He's chatting about himself for like 20 minutes, which is fine. Listen, I'm more of a listener than a talker. I much prefer listening to people than talking about myself. Unless it's TikTok, then it's all about me. But in real life, I'm definitely a listener. He's going on about himself, not asking anything about me, but I'm like, okay, some people are just like that, it's fine. And then we're talking, and you know when you can tell that someone isn't looking at you anymore? They're looking past you. They're looking over your shoulder. He's looking over my shoulder, so I'm getting a bit paranoid, so I turn around to see what he's looking at. And it's a group of girls. My man went, you know that blonde one? And I look again, but like they're all blonde. So I'm like, yeah, like I don't even care which one he's talking about. I just want to know what he's going to say. Yeah, that blonde one, I f***ed her. Okay. Why would you tell me that? Like, listen, not on a first date. And not like that. It's the way, like, it was such disrespect at, like, I can't stand that kind of thing. Like, if I had sex with a guy and he wants to tell someone about it, you better say we had sex. Not, oh, I f***ed her. Listen, I f***ed you. That girl probably f***ed you. You probably lay there doing nothing. So I'm sort of there, like, speechless. Like, I don't know if it's a joke. Like, I'm waiting for him to start laughing and telling me it's a joke. When he sees my face, he meant, oh, but not to make you feel bad. The fuck do you mean? Are you talking about not making me feel bad? I should have left. If that ever, again, Ugh, I hate myself. I hate the old version of me. I hate Lauren. Right, I'm Slaney now. That was Lauren. Lauren stayed. Slaney didn't stay. Slaney didn't stay. Slaney didn't stay. Slaney would have left. Lauren stayed. He then finally, right, so we've got past that. He then asked me about my job. I worked in planning permission at the time. I get that it's a boring job. It was very boring. But as I'm explaining like what I would actually do in planning permission, he went like that, held up his finger to me, and he's like, I've just got to go to the bathroom. So I'm like, okay, fine, interrupt me, fine. He was like 10 minutes. The food arrived. The food arrived while he was in the bathroom. So at this point, I'm thinking like, what the fuck is he doing in there? What is he doing? Like, I know what he's doing in there. But I was wrong. What I thought he was doing, I wish he was doing. Because when he came and sat down, on my life, powder all over his little nostril. I did the little, you know that little sarcastic, like, you've got something there. My man went, oh. He snorted it. Now I'm texting my friends, right? Now I don't even care about the food anymore. I'm not even hungry anymore. I'm texting my friends, text me with an emergency. He then starts looking around the table and he's like, they forgot my rice. This stupid waitress forgot my rice. I don't like people who talk about waitresses like that, or waiters, like whoever. So the waitress walks by, so he calls her over. He tells her about the rice fiasco. She goes back to the counter, she comes back and she's like, oh, it wasn't even included in your order. You didn't even ask for rice. I don't remember whether he did or didn't, but it wasn't on the receipt. So she goes off and she's like, do you want me to put this rice order in? He's like, no, I'll do it myself. She goes off. Why did Peter think it would be okay to scrabble through his wallet for like a £5 note, chuck it at me, and ask me to get it? Don't chuck money at me. And if you are gonna chuck money at me, make sure it's $1 million. Don't chuck a £5 at me. I left at that point. I very discreetly put my clutch under my arm, took his £5 and said, yeah, I'll go get the rice. And then I just walked out. I didn't make a scene. He thought I was going to get his rice. He thought I was actually going to go get his rice. Walked out and then spent it getting a cab home. And the most upsetting part about it is I'd only eaten half my wrap. I didn't even finish my wrap. I should have finished my wrap and then walked out. At least he paid for it all though. That's the cost of wasting my time. It actually makes me sick. Sick that I didn't walk out. I should have left as soon as he lied about his height, because if you can lie about your height, what else are you capable of lying about? And as I walked out of that restaurant, I was blocking his number. I deleted my whole Tinder account. I was done with Tinder at that point. Blocked his number and blocked his Instagram. And a couple of years later, I was walking down the high street, because I was still living in the same area then. I was walking down the high street and I saw him. Imagine I ran behind a tree. I ran and hid behind a tree.
So when I was 18, I matched with a guy on Tinder and we decided to go for some drinks in Cassidy's. We met up and really weren't hitting it off, which happens, whatever. So after half an hour of awkward small talk, he went to the bathroom. I waited at least 20 minutes for him to come back, but he never did, so I texted my friends who were out and said I would wait for them at the Spire. When I walked out of the bar, the date was standing across the road just watching the door of the bar. I ignored him and started walking, but he followed about 20 feet behind me the whole time. When I got to the Spire, he stood across the road, literally staring at me like something from a movie. I was too scared to confront him, so I just waited there for about 20 minutes with him watching me. When my friends showed up, we just started walking and he followed, of course. He followed us around town for about half an hour until we eventually lost him in the McDonald's bathroom. Then when I was on the bus home, he sent me these huge paragraphs telling me how boring I am and just berating me and saying all these awful things. I thought that was it, but a couple of weeks later I came out of college and guess who was standing across the road watching the door? I had no idea how long he had been there, but again I was too scared to confront him. This time he followed me around town. I went into shops and everything for probably half an hour until I met up with a friend. That was the last time I saw him, but he did try to add me on Facebook a couple of weeks later. His name was... I blanked it out there, as far as I remember. I blanked out most of the name there anyway, because God knows I don't need TikTok coming for me for something else. If any girl wants to message me for the name, like if they feel like, you know, they know him or have had dealings with him, yeah, no bother, contact me on Instagram or send me an email, because this fella seems like a fucking oddball. Like, I can't even make head nor tail of why he would leave and then stand and watch her, like. Weird cunt.
I went on a date with a guy. It was our first date. We had fajitas and margaritas. It was good. It was a vibe. He was funny. He was nice. He was like, hey, do you want to go back to my house to watch a movie? And I was like, sure. We get to his house and he takes me to his room. I sit on his bed and then he immediately goes into the bathroom. You know, no big deal. Whatever. You gotta go potty? You gotta go potty. But he didn't close the door. He pulled on his pants and he sat on the toilet. And I'm thinking maybe he sits when he pees. Like, that's fine. I don't judge. I don't care. Whatever. And he's sitting there for a minute. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, ugh, I'm pooping. Who does that? Who does that?
Okay, here's a little dating horror story for you guys. So one time I was dating this guy and I was at his place and we had a couple of glasses of wine and I drove to his place. So he was like, okay, well, you're not going to drive home now, so you can stay the night. And at this stage, like, we'd never had a sleepover before. It was time to go to bed and we were in the bathroom brushing our teeth. And then all of a sudden he stops brushing his teeth and he goes, oh, wait, before you stay the night, there's one thing you need to do. And I was like, random? Yeah, what is it? He points to the scales and goes, step on that. And I stood there like mortified. I was like, what? Like, is there a weight restriction? Like, do I have to make sure my BMI is in the green to be allowed to stay over the night? Like, what? I just laughed it off. Like, that was so funny.
Worst Tinder date of all time. I don't know how much time you've got, but I rocked up to the date. He was 40 minutes late, which is already a red flag. And he is like, B? Which very familiar because we've never met. He's calling me by my nickname. And I'm looking at this guy like I don't know who you are. And it was the guy. He just looked nothing like his pics. And he sits down and he was late because he was buying weed. And then he couldn't get a drink because he didn't have any money. So I bought him a drink. And then I said to him, well, why did you come here if you didn't have any money? What? And he said, in truth, I'm unemployed because I'm recovering from a crack addiction. I've been clean for 2 weeks. And I was like, babe, what are you doing on Tinder? You don't need Tinder, you need Jesus.
Story time! Tinder date gone wrong. To the guy that's watching and this is about, I'm sorry, you just followed me, you're going to see this. That was a shitty move on your part. I'm gonna laugh about it because what can I do? I'm gonna make a TikTok about it and then. So check it, guys. I met this guy on Tinder and he was really, really sweet. And but this is not a diss. It might be. Take it how you want to take it. Anyway, I met this guy. We were vibing, getting to know each other. Everything was fine. We finally decided to meet up, right? So he invited me over. We started cooking dinner. It was like kebabs and asparagus, steak and chicken. Very, very nice. Very nice. Very nice. I felt pampered. I was special, or so I thought, right? It was Tinder date gone wrong. So after we cooked dinner and we watched like a nice little show by like the fireplace or whatever, we go back to the apartment and play a question game. We play 2 rounds of the question game. Everything's going so nice. We're getting to know each other. We decided to watch a movie. Something told me to stay. You know when you get that gut feeling? Yeah, I was an hour away, but I was staying. I stayed to watch the movie. All of a sudden, I heard the door.
My son died.
Put a finger down if you went on a first date tonight and in the middle of dinner you jokingly said, haha, you're so funny, I don't understand how you've been single this long, don't tell me you're married, motherfucker. And he said, no, actually I am married. And he wasn't joking.
This is why you should never use Tinder. So I'm sure all of us know what Tinder is. Tinder is the dating app that pretty much everybody goes through. Here's a crazy story about this psychotic girl. A father hopped on Tinder after recently getting divorced, hoping to meet some new singles. He puts in his bio that he's not really looking for anything serious. He's looking for more like a friends with benefits kind of thing. He goes on a couple dates and literally none of them are having any chemistry, so he keeps searching until he finds this one girl. So they meet up. Obviously, the date goes well, they go back to his place, and he ends up really, really liking her. But he informs her that he is not looking for anything serious, he's just wanting to keep it, you know. So the following day, his 3-year-old daughter broke his phone, and here's where things get crazy. Since he didn't reply for 3 minutes, she drove over to his house, broke into his house, and started screaming at him for not replying. He then texted her and said, that was completely inappropriate for you to do. I have a 3-year-old daughter. So for the next 5 years, she followed him to every job and even today, apparently she still does it.
This guy told me on our first date, I will be your Christian Grey. So I command you to pay for my McDonald's. What the hell? Oh my God, if a man said to me, I will be your Christian Grey. Boy, I would be out of that door as fast as you can say goodbye.
I went on a date with a guy. Here were some of the things he did during the date. Firstly, he was telling everyone we were on a date. We're on a date. Then asked the waitress to make the date more romantic. He then brought out an ice cream sundae for 2. He ate alone. What went in his mouth, the rest of it all went down his front. He kept asking me if I was a gold digger because he makes tons of money and he needs to protect himself. He then demands to split the bill, which is no big deal. I'm happy to split the bill until all 4 of his credit cards got declined. And he had the cheek to ask me if I was happy to cover the bill. He'll sort us out next time. I don't think there's going to be a next time. He then proceeded to tell people the date went splendidly. He gave me stickers from his welding company as a thank you for paying, since his credit cards must have some kind of error. Are we okay?
I basically got kidnapped from a Tinder date. I was telling this story at a party and I got super passionate when I did a few days ago. So I was like, wow, this is the perfect story for TikTok. It happened about a year ago. I don't like to get to know people so much over the app before I meet up with them, because I just feel like when you're texting with people, you get a different idea of who they are than who they actually are. So usually right away I'm like, let's meet up. It was a stupid idea that time because I meet up with this guy who's kind of cute. But at the end of the date, he asks, "Do you want to go back to my place?" And to translate that, he's asking, "Do you want to have sex?" And I'm like, "Well, we literally met like 27 seconds ago, so no." And he's like, "Well, do you want to at least go on a drive?" And I, like an idiot, get in his car, like for part 2. How I got kidnapped by my Tinder date, part 2. So I get in his car and we drive around for a whole 3 minutes before he puts something in his GPS. And so naturally I ask, "Hey, what did you just put in your GPS?" And he goes, "My place. I thought we could hang out there." So I'm fucking scared. And I do that trick when you text your best friend and you say, "Hey, just call me, make up some emergency, and say you need me right now." My best friend Kat, by the way, follow her, Kat the Moonstar. Anyway, so she does, and she calls me, and was like, "Oh my God, I have an emergency, come right now." So I hang up and I go, "Hey, my friend has an emergency. I have to come right now." And he goes, "You think you're the first girl who's done this to me? You think I don't know what this is? I know that there's no emergency. I know that you're faking it to get out of here." Like for part 3. Part 3 of how my Tinder date basically kidnapped me. At this point, he's going, "You know that I know what this is." And he called me out for faking an emergency so I could get the fuck out of his car because he's trying to drive me home or to his place without my consent. And he starts cussing me out, calling me every curse word in the book. I don't even want to say it because it will get picked up by the Tinder algorithm, but the WH word, the C word, the B word, everyone, and goes, "Thank you for wasting my time." I'm like, "Oh, so this was all about just having sex with me, and I wasted your time by saying no to that? Fuck this guy." So I'm like, "Drive me back to my car." So he just starts driving me back to my car and talking all about how I'm ugly anyway, and how he would never have sex with me, and all this shit that doesn't make any fucking sense. He literally just kidnapped me, or basically kidnapped me, driving to his own place. Like for part 4. Part 4 of how my Tinder date kidnapped me. So he's driving me back to my car and calling me ugly, all this other shit, and I'm just like, at some point I'm like, stop the car right now. He stops it on the side of the road, on a random road, and I go, thank you for being such a fucking asshole, the worst person I've ever met in my life, and I slammed the door hard, hoping that it got damage to his car. I don't think it did, because I am weak, and I'm on the side of the road, and I don't know how to get home, so I call my friend Joey to pick me up. He couldn't, so I call my friend Catrian. She eventually does, and I start getting texts from him saying, you're a cunt, you're the worst, blah, blah, blah. Fuck, I said the word, whatever. You're the worst. And how I was covered in cat hair, and how I should never go on a date covered in cat hair because no man will ever want me. Bitch, it is a compliment. If I go on a date and a guy is covered in cat hair, that means a cat likes him enough. Thank you for listening to my story.